Micah Singleton, and you are watching the Philadelphia Business Leaders Series. Today we have Jamie Martin, who is the Chief Marketing Officer with Strive Physical Therapy. So we have a few questions for you. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You have had a very successful and impressive career journey in the field of physical therapy, practice management. Can you tell us a little bit about that career journey, what it's been like for you, what have been your successes, how you've managed to be so successful?
Sure. So I will tell you a little bit about my career. I became a physical therapist in 1985. I went into private practice in 1988 with two other partners, which had nothing to do with Strive. That was a different company. And we treated patients and ran and developed the company till we had 21 practices. And we went from 21 practices and we sold the company to Novacare. In those 21 practices, we also started something called hospital contracts. So at the time, there weren't a lot of those going on, and hospital contracts the hospitals were struggling to get physical therapists. Physical therapists were in a huge demand. There was a huge demand for physical therapists. And so we went to the hospitals and tried to fill their void. We were really doing it to start to try to help them. And because they were really struggling, and it was coming to the point where patients, in order to be in the hospital, had to have physical therapy and things like that. So we ran their inpatients and we did their outpatients. And for those hospitals, we opened 2 outpatient clinics. We eventually got more outpatient clinics in other hospitals. And to that end, when we sold, the people who purchased us also got those hospital contracts. So I stayed home for a little while. I had 2 small children at the time. I stayed home for a little while, but I am not great at that because I wanted to run the school system like I run a company. I want to run bingo like I run a company. So I didn't do that very well. So I had to get back to work. Even my kids say I wasn't that good at that. And they actually, no, they adore me. But they feel like we have much better time together now that I am working, so they like it. They actually feel like it's better that I work. But so at the time, I was sending patients to Strive out of my kitchen because people were coming and asking me to evaluate their injuries or, tell them where to go or get them into a physician, because I still had a lot of great physician contacts. And so I approached Strive. Strive had 2 partners, Mark and Eric, my 2 partners now, and I told them that I was going to go back into practice and that I didn't really want to compete with them, but that I was going to go back into practice one way or the other. And to their credit, they took me as an equal partner, and they had a 50-50 partnership, and now we have a third, and a third. And they had 1 small practice, but they wanted to grow. I think they knew that they had to, which really you kind of always have to if you want to be a good, strong company, almost in a way, for physical therapy now. And so to their credit, we started to work on that. And to be honest, I don't think that I understood how good I was at marketing and relationship building and networking. I don't think I knew how good I was at it, and that sounds terrible because I don't mean to be tooting my own horn, but what I'm really good at is growth and building that kind of a corporation. So I think that my early success became what allows me to be successful now, and I trust myself. I trust my instincts. I trust that I know what's going to work. Good business people can't make decisions just on instinct, but instinct is invaluable if you have the right metrics to understand what your business is doing, or if you have the right things the right ingredients to make it successful. Your instinct makes you, deadly, because instincts, even in physical therapy, instincts make you the best physical therapist. I think they write books about people who have those instincts about patients or can diagnose them correctly or things like that. But so I think my success, I've never really been competing with NovaCare. I never even think of another physical therapy company out there. I really don't. I just compete within my own four walls with what I think is the best thing to do for patients and for my company and for my partners and for my business and for my employees. So I think, success, it's funny because I think I wrote something down for myself. I think success builds confidence. And I think the first time I did it, like anything, you think it's just luck, or you think that you got with the right partners or those kinds of things. I don't think you really ever give yourself, especially if you're a woman, you don't give yourself the luxury of saying that the success had anything to do with you, typically. Now, I think as I've gotten much older, and I've done the exact same thing I did the first time, only better, I think I finally am confident in who I am and how I run a business. Not so confident that I'm not willing to say that I've made mistakes or that I still make mistakes. And not so confident that I don't still listen intently to the sounds of my company and what people say, but confident in the fact that whatever I do will be successful in one way or another. Oh,
that's awesome. I feel like I'm learning so much from you. So you were giving us such great information. I want you to think about this for a second. There are going to be students watching this. There are business students, healthcare students. What advice could you give them to, help them prepare for their careers now that you're looking back on how successful you've been?
So I have a lot of advice. That's terrible to say. And I have a daughter who is studying biomedical engineering, and I give her this advice all the time. And so I'm going to give you some advice for women and some advice for men, because I think there's differences in how we run companies and differences in how we make decisions. I think the advice for everybody, and I don't want to forget this, I wrote it down. I think my advice for everyone is a couple things. The first one is never fear making mistakes. Mistakes are really part of how you solve problems. It's how you learn. It's how you understand what to do and what not to do again. I think that's the biggest thing, that mistakes happen. You have to understand when you start in a new job, you don't know everything. So make the mistakes. Make the mistakes. Be willing to say that you made it. Be willing to stand up for the fact that it's not going to happen again, especially if it's a big mistake or a grave thing. But understand that making the mistakes help you learn. And so if you're afraid to make mistakes, you're always going to be fearful, and you're never really going to do or allow yourself to do what you're capable of. I think that's huge for me. The other thing is, I always love when someone works for me that they come to me with the problem, but they come to me with their thought of what the solution could be. Sometimes it's the right solution. Sometimes it's a solution way better than I would have thought about. Sometimes it's the wrong solution, but it gives me thought processes for how to make the right solution or how to come to the right solving of the problem. And I think the people who present problems and just lay them in your lap like you're the one that's going to be responsible for them, or you're the one that's going to have to fix them or take care of them, they're not people who are continuing to learn from their job or from what they're doing, which is part of when I said make every job your best job. And to be positive and proactive and to constantly be looking at it from the opposite point of view. So I could look at it from just marketing and going out there and advertising, right? Or I could look at it from how my doctors get me patients. And is it a pain to get me patients? Because if it is, they're not going to do it. So how do I make it the easiest for them to get me patients? And what is that? How do I make the communication from my therapist back to the doctor the easiest and the most successful for him or her? How do I make it the easiest thing for a client or a customer to get my product, which is my physical therapist or my physical therapy? How do I make it so that they feel part of the family? How do I make it so they feel comfortable? All of those things are what I look at every time. And I think, I told you always to be a learner, but I think that for women have a lot of negative self-talk. We talk about how fat our thighs are, or how, big our nose is, or how, what the age spots that we have and the wrinkles that we have. I think instead of wasting the time on negative self-talk, I'll never get that raise, or I'll never get that position, or I'll never do that, I think that's a waste of time. And it's not to say that I don't have days that I do have some of that, but women should never have negative self-talk, not about yourself, not about who you are, not about your job. And you should never allow other people to hear your negative self-talk, because they key in on it, and people use it. It's unfortunate, but people do. So I think that's for women. I think the other thing for women and men is when you ask for a raise, stop talking. When you say, I think I'm worth $50,000, or I think I'm worth $30,000 or $60,000. If you believe you're worth that, stop talking. I love being able to give people raises. I love being able to make sure that people have jobs. I love having a reason to get out of bed in the morning and be part of people's lives and in improving them and allowing them to buy a house, or all of those things. And it is the thing that, again, inspires me and motivates me. It reminds me that if I have a bad day, there are 250 people depending upon me to work and to get out there and make their job happen and give them paychecks. And so those are all great things. I love there's not one day that I don't love coming in to work.
That's awesome. It's also rare sometimes these days for people to really enjoy what they do, to get the most out of it, feel fulfilled in their daily work.
I think too, and I didn't want to interrupt you by any stretch, but I think people also have to, I don't think every job is your best job, but I think you need to make every job your best job. I really do. I think, maybe, someone who does our billing, maybe that wasn't exactly what they started out to do, but they need to, every time you have a job, you need to learn from that position and be willing to give it your all until you need to move on. And in this case, or you invent it, or you make your job. So, sorry.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that. Should be a slogan. Make every job your best job.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow your advice.
Good.
So I want to ask you something. With so many private practices out there, what really sets Strive aside from the rest? How have they become different from their competitors?
What has made Strive different from its competitors? I think, like I said before, you can have a company, and this could be any company. There's tons of places to shop, right? And how do you make your place the best? And I think it's driven back again to the consumer. And what does the consumer want in a physical therapy company? They want their physical therapist to be the best, most educated, besides the other things, likable and, those kinds of things, they want them to be very strong in their career, and they want to know and trust that they're going to make them better and that they're not wasting their time. So I think one of the things that Strive has done is we really, really, really value education. Not just education when you come to us, but we continue to educate you. We continue to provide all kinds of specialty, subspecialty programs, specialty services. We see a ton of students through our practice in all of our offices. We work very hard on educating our therapists, not only with physical therapy courses and education pieces, but also educating them in business. We talk about how many referrals we've gotten in the door. We talk about how many visits we've seen. We talk about the metrics that they need to pay attention to in a business way. Everybody sees financials, everybody, down to the last person at a staff meeting who might just be there on a part-time basis. Everybody knows we're very transparent about financials. We're very transparent about what we make and what it costs us and what our profit margin is. So I think we do an excellent, excellent job educating them as a physical therapist to do a great job for their patient, but also to be mindful of what it takes to run a company. And I think the other thing that sets us apart from almost anything I ever do in any walk of life is our customer service. I think we have a slogan around here. It's called "Smile Through the Phone," and that everybody needs to understand, whether they're calling about a bill, whether they're calling because, anything that could happen. We just got a call today. Someone slipped and fell in 2015 in one of our parking lots, and it's not our responsibility. We don't own the building, but it's still, it's still something that we have to be kind about. We have to call and say, "I'm sorry that happened. We didn't, we understand that you're talking to the landlord," or those kinds of things. We can never be defensive. So what we talk about with all of our staff is, how do you want to be treated when you call up and you are looking for help? You maybe have been waiting on getting help for 3 weeks. You have pain or a problem, and we can't tell you, "I'm sorry, we can't see you for the next 6 weeks, so we need to get you in within 24 to 48 hours. If you really are having a problem so severe, we get you in that day. But if not, the next day." And they have to be very kind and decent on the phone, and very helpful all the time. Like I said before, you can't have a bad day around here. So if you have a bad day, you got to take a vacation day, because you can't have it. So I think what we provide is customer service, the highest, the utmost of customer service at all times. And we talk about that. We listen to phone calls, and if in the first, few seconds you haven't gotten the person's name and utilized their name, that doesn't make us happy. So.
Wow.
So those are kind of my things. And I love this quote, and I had to look up, it's on my wall right in front of me. I had to look up who actually said it. It's Jack Canfield, and he said, "Everything you want to do is on the other side of fear." And I think that when I went back into practice, the thing that kept me up most nights was that I was fearful that I wasn't really as good as I thought I was. I don't know how to put that, but that someone's going to find out that you're a fraud, that you're not really a good therapist, or that you're not really good at marketing, or you're not really good at growth, or any of those things. And I think that fear held me back. And it obviously didn't stunt our growth, but it held me back from sharing my opinions or my thoughts. And I think that that's wasted time, because, whoever said all you have to fear is fear itself, that's kind of true. Because so what? So what if I didn't get a patient better? That would be the worst thing that could happen to me, really. You know, having a bad month or not being profitable for a month, yeah, that's bad. It's not nearly as bad as disappointing someone and not being able to do what they need from me. So when I realized that, it just really all seemed to fall into place. And I felt confident. And I still think that. That's why I can probably say I'm really good at something now, because I am. I've figured out how to do it, and it makes me happy every day. And the last thing is to be a good listener. I think if you are in a company, you run a company, you're part of a company, I think the best thing you can do in any company is really listen and stop thinking you know it all, because trust me, you never do. Never, ever, ever do. So always learn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I feel like we have learned so much from you. I appreciate
hope
your
so.
wisdom, your honesty, and definitely your advice. So it's definitely been great having you here today. And we want to
Thank you.
thank you for watching the Philadelphia Business Leaders Series. Tune in next time.